We should probably hit the reminder button for the Comic Fam. Tell them to subscribe and like because we need the support. We're going to get into some viewer comments. Let's do it right here, right now.
The very first comment to lead this off is going to be Giona. Giona?
Giona.
Why not? The reason that I like so much this podcast is that you share your personal stories. It feels like I know you after all this time and learning about the hobby through your stories. Thank you.
I appreciate that comment.
You don't know me.
No, I feel like, when I listen to podcasts, there's a handful of them that I listen to regularly. That's a thing that happens, when we are, because we're honest, on the mic. We're telling you about what's going on in our lives. And for real, how much time do we spend doing comic book things? Like, this is what we do more than, like, honestly, man, it's like family and comics. I keep saying comet. I keep saying it. We're going to get there. We're figuring it out, Comic Fam. But for real, though, I appreciate the comment because that's what I try to do. I'm trying to bring the most honest and real and what we are experiencing in this hobby to the table because that is the origin of this podcast and this entire show. I had this idea back in the day that it would be so cool to just record what I thought was the most fascinating thing in the comic industry, which is just the experiences that I would have by becoming more and more entrenched in the medium because of the friends, which I look at as family now, as well as just what I learn about comic books through the dealers and the very knowledgeable specialists that I just familiarize myself with through the con scene. And I thought, it was never about entertaining the masses, man. You know that? I never thought for 1 second, I never told Ryan or Russ, I never said, yo, we're trying to get like 100,000 subscribers and we're trying to entertain people across the world. I told everybody the same thing. All I want to do is entertain the dealers and our friends and our community. Because if I could provide a podcast and a show and visual content that entertained some of the people behind the booths at the conventions that we visited 10, 15 times a year, we're doing something special and it's going to be good enough. And the fact that we have a community that's formed around this, that's just a benefit. That is just gravy on the potatoes. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, so you're talking about before we started YouTube?
Before I even knew the Comic Fam. I'm talking like when I was looking at making comic book content a decade ago, my ideas were, I just want to make content for my homies, because when you're chilling with your homies, these types of individuals, if we can entertain them, then there's a good chance that we can grow the comic book community. And the fact that that started after we started to get introduced to the IG Comic Fam, to the YouTube Comic Fam, well, now we're here for everybody. Obviously, we're trying to grow the comic book community at large, and that's our purpose now. But in the origin story, it was just like, if we had 50 people who liked what we were doing within the comic space, that would be fun enough. We're going to record the comic history.
I have to agree with you on the aspect of like just coming to the table to chat. This is easy, right? Because like you said, how much time we spend thinking about it, it's actually a disgusting amount of time, how much I spend thinking about comics. It really is. And it's kind of an illness. It's sick. All right, guys, but I can't help it. It encompasses most of my day and my thought process. Books are just on my mind, and people who do books and sell books and just...
It's a little addicting, dude.
It's really addicting. And because I'm kind of entrenched in a YouTube channel, my IG platform, it just adds to an already like overwhelmingly encompassing thought process of comics. But when we come to this table, it's not difficult because we're talking passionately about something we really love to do. And sharing just our history, our experiences, and we have more than most. And so just having a chance to bring that to you guys so you can learn from that, take it to heart, share that experience, or you have your own stories. And all of you have your stories. Everyone's got their own moments in this collectible. And it's, as you stay in it longer, there's so many great things that are going to happen. There's going to be regrets. There's going to be tons of wins. There's going to be the occasional loss, yet the loss is going to eat at you more than the 15 wins you had.
Right.
But that's what makes it great, and that's what makes us all a family, is that we can share a lot of this and really relate. And that's what I love about it.
Alan Amatusio. I actually had a Golden Age horror collection that I was working on that ended up getting burnt, ironically. If you know your 50s Golden Age horror history, then you know why that's iconic. This is during our video where we were chatting about Golden Age, specifically buyer's regret. And this member almost acquired a collection, but it sounds like he was destroyed. And he's right. This is one of those, it's the irony is real, because how many Golden Age comics were literally burned?
Especially this time frame. I mean, this was the reason that there were comics being destroyed, because of the horror, okay, and the over amount of violence you saw on these pages. So people were getting together to burn them because they were allegedly destroying the minds of young teens.
Corrupting the youth.
Exactly. So to hear that they're burnt this many years later is just, I see what you mean by being ironic.
Right. All right. This next one here from a longtime supporter of the show, and I'm talking since like year one, Steven Thanos. Great name, by the way. And I will tell you, he's a member of the Mail Call. And his last name is Thanos. It's a real thing. He says, mind blown. Now I'm going to be seeing 9.9s everywhere I go. It can't be a coincidence. He's talking about our coverage about one of our friends in the community who brought 9.9s to the shop just a couple weeks ago. I'm talking about, yes, A New Mutants 98, A New Mutants 87, and Alpha Flight 1 newsstand. That's right. We're talking about
G.I. Joe 1. It was your favorite.
Gosh, yeah, the G.I. Joe 1, man, that newsstand G.I. Joe 1. I really want it so bad. But a lot of people got super surprised that someone could secure 9.9s. And it's all about timing, isn't it? This person in the community knew that 9.9s were a thing, something to look at with a prestigiousness that was above all else. So that was above the 9.8s, and he secured them at a time that they weren't selling for what they're selling today. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, he had a ton of foresight. And listen, Thanos, if you're seeing 9.9s everywhere and you're descendant from Thanos, there's no shock in my mind that you're messing up some reality stone stuff. But I probably have good 9 to 10 9.9s in my collection.
You have a lot of 9.9s in your collection, in my opinion. I've seen your 9.9s.
Right.
Dude, to some degree, I think that for sure I have some 9.9s, but there's some, I'm saying I think for a reason.
Yeah, look, they're all 9.9s. They just happen to be misgraded in 9.8 CGC holders.
You know what we're talking about, Comic Fam. You know what we're talking about. All right, the next one. Pure Gosu, Gosu. He says, taxes are insane. That's why I don't buy a lot of expensive books anymore. This is real, man. I got to look into this. I saw some members comment like, yo, you got to get your your resellers permit figured out on eBay. I'm crossing my fingers and my toes that that's a thing. I don't know. I'm looking into it before I buy my next purchase, because this Journey 85 cost me way less because I bought it at a store. And when I was looking at buying this book on eBay, as I was calculating what it was going to cost, it would have added $500 in taxes. And you got to consider that, Comic Fam, if you're getting surprised why Instagram live auction sales are off the chain right now. It's because the main platform to sell comic books, you're paying an inflation just across the board, just over and over again, every way you look. Shipping is more expensive. eBay fees are more expensive. And now you're paying taxes on books. If you are living within, I think it's 34, don't hold me to that number, but it's above 30 states out of the 50.
You're right. I mean, books are expensive. So, these percentages, though they might sound small when you hear them, you put that a multiplier of the price of a comic, you're spending another $3, $4, $5, $6, $1,000 more just to secure this thing where, if you'd bought it at a convention, you probably wouldn't get charged tax.
Dude, you buy it at a convention for that much money, you're getting a better grade. It could be half a freaking point. And I'm buying a 2.0 right now. I would love to have a 2.5. I would love to have a 3.0. But instead, I'm paying eBay a little bit more money to sell comic books, to buy comic books. And I happen to know that eBay has a lot of frustrating things to say about comics on their platform. This is what it is, brother. Taxes. They're going to get you, man. But if anything, this comment should tell you that you got to get your network. You got to grow that network. You got to meet your dealers. You got to befriend members in the community and start participating, because you know what? Friends and family never look so good. You know what I'm saying? Shout out PayPal. Here we go. MG says, I love the podcast, guys. I toss it on and split my time between watching and doing things around the house. Awesome discussion and information. And this is kind of what I was talking about. I had a friend, shout out Mike the Butcher. You know who you are. He's one of the coolest people that I've met in the con scene. Just a diehard comic lover. A Canadian superhero butcher. You know what we need? We need a superhero who's a butcher as well. Like, that's his hobby, is just cutting up meat. But then you know what? He cleans the blade, puts it in a little satchel, and then he throws a mask on and saves people. Because Mike is a butcher, and he's a real butcher. Like, this dude knows his meat.
He does. He's even got the butcher hands. You know, when you shake this guy's hand,
oh, you feel it,
it's
man.
Like a vice, dude. You're gonna get crushed.
Dude, this guy is awesome. And he told me a couple years ago, that he's like, yo, I listen to your podcast as I'm going to bed, and I put it on. And I thought in that moment, he doesn't have YouTube Red, which means that he's having to keep it on the screen, which means his phone is lit up and he's not even watching us. And that right there was a moment where I knew we got to get our podcast on audio formats for the fam, especially considering one of the main things, like I just said, is I wanted to make shows for people who were bagging and boarding comics, who were doing the comic grind. And I wanted to add some entertainment to their day-to-day, because we spent a lot of time on this, as we just said. So shout out Mike and shout out MG. I'm glad that you're enjoying the podcast. Just like this next member of the community, another awesome person, Sal Felix. He says, I love the textures on the Johnny Desjardins covers. We were showcasing some of this last podcast with the Guru. Some gifts that Johnny had sent into the show for me because he knew I was such a fan of his work. This artist, I'm telling you, you need to follow him on Instagram. Johnny Desjardins. You're going to see more from this comic book artist. If I have anything to say about it, I'm going to get an exclusive cover with this gentleman. It's got to happen. And this is what Sal Felix said. His paints got a chunkiness to them where I just want to touch them. Love his Ha-Ha Clown covers and out of body covers. And here's the thing. Johnny saw our coverage after our podcast, and this is what he had to say about it, because I was talking about how you just want to touch them. The textures, the canvas must be saturated with so much paint that it's got to just be a unique thing. Because I'm looking at a cover here. I'm sitting in front of the ones from a couple weeks ago because I haven't cleaned the table off, and I feel like you could touch it, and it's not going to be this glossy cover that's flat, because it's going to play a trick on you. But the original, it has to be so thick. This is what Johnny said. Man, I'm so appreciative of the review that we did of his work. I love the review. You nailed the look I am going for so perfectly. The paintings read like, quote, Braille. Yes. Can you imagine? He's just validating that this original work is probably like the thickness of the damn canvas itself.
Yeah, the texture for that artwork just seemed to really feel, like you mentioned, thick. Like it felt like there was volume and depth, and the zombie and the turtles, it came alive off the paper. It had great tone to it, and it felt rich, vibrant, and I dug it as well.
Comic Fam coming in with the comments this week. This one's from Jim Jam. We need to know Jeff's thoughts on Cap Tits and Sam Wilson as Cap Tits. Does he love it as much as the rest of us? Please, Jeff, I need you to answer this question, but I need you to also enlighten any of the new members. There's a lot of new comic book enthusiasts that are just joined us at the table in this last week. Hit the subscribe button, Comic Fam. We got a lot of new members here. They may not know about the Rob Liefeld legendary work that he did with Steve Rogers.
Yeah, Jim Jam, I'm very glad you asked this question, because I absolutely love the Sam Wilson Cap Tits as much as I love the original Cap Tits. which says a lot. So Rob Liefeld made an interpretation of Cap, which was so anatomically incorrect that it's now legendary. And so now that Sam Wilson is the new Cap, we got to see that all over again.
Courtesy of Boss Logic. Shout out. This dude is amazing. One of the biggest creators of our generation. He drew Sam Wilson with the Rob Liefeld, homage in mind. The bustiness of Steve Rogers was felt on the Sam Wilson edition of this variant of this prestigious artwork. And I also like to mention that when people say cap tits, when we say cap tits, we're not saying this derogatory in any way. Rob Liefeld calls it that. He says proudly, I drew cap tits. I'm going to just let the X-Files just keep on going because it's a little eerie as well when you look at it.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to own your mistakes, and I think that's what this is. You just, when you get just nailed over and over again, at some point you're like, you know what? Yep, I did it.
All right, we got JR, a.k.a. Just a Pele. I love this guy. My biggest convention shopping regret is passing on a CGC 9.9 Iron Man number uno 7 years ago. He passed it when it was being offered for $20,000, which at the time was about 3 times more than what a 9.8 went for. And he just didn't know how rare the 9.9s were at that time. And he also was at a convention. He had more things he wanted to buy, and he didn't want to put all of his money into one book, but now he regrets it.
Well, we just said that, right? The 9.9s, they weren't at the level that they are now. People did not collect them, and they weren't as coveted as they should have been, obviously. So hindsight, when you hear it, you're like, God, that was dumb. Why didn't you pick it up? It just wasn't what it was like it is today.
Clyde, the pressing issue, says, I'm ill thinking about passing on 10 Secret Wars 8 for $100. I bought a raw copy for more than that, and I'm hoping for a 9.6. You mentioned about your 10.0 Secret Wars pass that you made. And remind me, how much was it for?
$100.
Oh my goodness. You know what? Clyde has pressing issues. Your pass on those 10 Secret Wars 8 isn't as bad as Jeff, so you can at least know that you beat the guru on that one and enjoy your 9.6. And I'm going to pray to Thor that it comes back a 9.8 or higher for you. All right. Brett Heiss R said, I bought my copy of Ultimate Fallout 4 from the guru about a year before it went crazy. So are you feeling some seller's regret, my brother?
Oh, man. No, it went to a good person.
He is a good person. He's been a member for a long time.
No regret, man. I sold those. I got to keep one myself. Brett, congrats, man.
Congrats. We love your comments, Comic Fam. We appreciate them. We bring them back on the mic. We want to hear what you have to say in the comment section below.